Okay, we're into an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a really cool kind of special episode for you guys, brought to you by channel sponsors Belmont Watches in San Diego. And this is, you know, not a direct review, although you can get both of these options, at least at the time of filming this. You can buy these, either example of these from their shop down in the description below. But yeah, this is kind of a two-watch collection proposition because these two models kind of have it all. And the cool thing is they capture so much of what we love about Seiko and Grand Seiko while offering some very unique features, as well as being, just not super common by comparison to some of their competitors. Now, a little bit about the brand. Seiko was founded back in 1881. They're Japanese in origin and have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end, and Grand Seiko was founded in 1960. Now, on the left hand side, you're going to have your Grand Seiko Heritage SLGH013, and it's essentially the grandest Grand Seiko, in terms of all the feature sets. It has their top tier high beat movement in their most iconic 44 GS case, constructed in ever brilliant steel, with a textured dial that pays tribute to both their popular Snowflake and Mount Iwate inspirational designs. You can get this for $7,000 pre-owned from Belmont Watches, and that is a nice little deal considering that at MSRP these go for $9,500. Now on the right hand side, although you might think you recognize this watch, you probably don't, because this is a JDM Prospex SBDX041 Beams 300 piece limited edition, and it is the rarest of the rare limited JDM only premium 62 Moss reissues. And essentially it has the most low-key matte black dial color, as well as a matching date disc layout. So it's just very different, honestly. Like, as much as you recognize that watch, it is actually a really cool iteration of it, and I think these two are really cool, and they're both ever brilliant steel. They're both kind of oddballs, and there's a lot of other options you could have that will maybe give you something that speaks to you for less. But if you're not looking for less, you're looking for kind of ultimate spec, these are two really good kind of options, and I think you pair them together and what else do you really need? So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Actually, maybe we'll get one word from our sponsors. You're never just buying a watch, you're buying the seller too. Well, here's a seller I can absolutely recommend. Belmont Watches in San Diego. Adam and Anthony are the real deal, true collectors with an enthusiast's eye. Check out their well-curated and regularly updated selection at belmontwatches.com. Follow along for weekly drops, and if you don't see something you like, reach out and connect. They might just have a lead on one of your own Grail watches. I've personally purchased both new and used from them, and even used their servicing and repair network. From new releases to vintage references and everything in between, whether niche independence or the horological holy trinity, Belmont has you covered. With competitive pricing and quick shipping, you can enjoy a friction-free experience. So before your next big purchase, make sure to check out Belmont Watches and tell them Mark sent you. Okay, thanks again, Belmont Watches, and let's take a look at these two gorgeous pieces. Very iconic in their own rights. Very different, but definitely from the same family. And I have to say, very impressive from both ends. And you know what? There haven't been too many videos on either of these models. But you know what? I really thought seeing them side by side would just be something very special and unique. And yes, there are other options. There are other snowflake-ish pattern dials with other movements. You know, some people really do enjoy a good spring drive movement. I do as well, but this movement is just, it's Seiko, Grand Seiko's finest movement yet, guys. I mean, goodness. And that's actually what allows it to be so thin. Look at just the bevels, the Zaratsu. It all really comes together in such, again, iconic form. And this is, the iconography here fits the brand, which is great because there's so many brands out there that you can get that do a great job of looking like something else. And we praise those factory brands, some of those micro brands that have just made a living on homage watches. But here you're getting a brand, and this is the brand's aesthetic. This is the pinnacle of this brand. And look at it. I mean, yeah, it's not going to come cheap. Grand Seiko sells these for $9,500, but you can get it for $7,000 now. So it's a good time within the market as it's starting to kind of slump on the aftermarket for you to just go ahead and not worry about that depreciation that somebody else paid for a brand new. And speaking of that, this model, I didn't mention what it costs retail because it doesn't matter. It's been sold out for a long time. There are only 300 of these ever made, guys. 300, not 3,000, 300. This is a legitimate limited edition. And are there people craving these? Absolutely. I mean, the ones that they made in groups of thousands are all completely sold out. This one, I mean, next level sold out, but you can get it for $6,000 from Belmont Watches in San Diego again. And that's a good reason why these are comparable also, because this is $6,000, this is $7,000. This one kind of went up in value because of the scarcity. And, you know, overall people really have just been resonating with that, you know, this design with the 62 MAS, you know, that idea of re-releasing it in a more premium spec. I mean, this one comes with a crazy box, display, everything. It even comes with an extra strap. But you know, let's get into it with these two. We'll actually start with the Grand Seiko, and we'll get into some of the details. So this is going to have a 40 millimeter diameter case, an 11.9 millimeter thickness, and a 47.1 millimeter lug to lug. It is made out of ever brilliant steel. It has a dual curved sapphire with an inner AR coating. It does have a screw down crown, which is nicely signed, as you guys can see. And inside beats the Grand Seiko Caliber 9S A5 high beat 80-hour power reserve, beating at 5 hertz or 10 ticks per second or 36,000 vibrations per hour. And if I can get that to focus, sorry about that. Boom. It is a beautiful movement, guys. It is one of their finest. I mean, this stands up next to any other Swiss made movement, at least within the same price range of under 10 grand. I would say probably up to around 20 grand. Things are going to stand up because typically the movements aren't going to be that much nicer in that span. It's going to be more so the materials, right? You're going to spend that much more on a gold case or something like that. The movement isn't necessarily going to be much better, but in this case, this thing has it all. I mean, there's better channels for how much better and why this particular movement is so advanced, you know, in terms of the escapement and all of the epic memes technology that's been used to really just make this very, very efficient. Again, 80-hour power reserve at 5 hertz. Most brands are lowering their beat rate so they can extend the power reserve. You're getting 80 hours of power and you're getting 5 hertz, right? So instead of 8 ticks per second, it's going to be 10. And most Seikos are going to be beating at 6 ticks per second, which is a 3 hertz beat rate, right? So this thing is awesome. Applied indices, pale blue, slightly melted snow texture. In terms of that dial, you have the framed date at 3 o'clock. Really beautifully done. Very classic, brushed and polished. Signature Dauphine hands, guys, with the amazing crisp beveling there. I mean, come on, there's just so much to love here. 10 bar or 100 meters of water resistance that you can be confident about thanks to that screw down crown. 19 millimeter lugs that are drilled. And you're going to get this great solid steel multi-link kind of signature Grand Seiko bracelet there. Screw and pin construction. And it tapers down to about 17.8 millimeters down at the clasp. Has a nice little kind of overhang spot there to make sure everything is nice and crisp and clean. And then you do get some half links as well. So very, very nice. Now getting into this piece here, you know, again, it is sold out new, so you don't have an option to buy this at retail, and you never will again, but you can get it used for $6,000 here. And it is in really immaculate condition, and it is completely complete in terms of the offerings in the package. Now, 39 millimeter diameter, 14.2 millimeters thick, 47.6 millimeters lug to lug, ever brilliant steel construction, dual curve box sapphire with an inner AR coating. And man, just the details on here, guys. It does have a nice rotating bezel. Ooh, a lot more stiff than my SLA017 62 MAS reissue. Some people might be liking that. That might be waiting for something a little bit tighter. Still quite smooth, but definitely has a bit more resistance in terms of that, and might be just the fact that it's ever brilliant steel, or it's just a little bit tighter in terms of the tolerance. Who knows? But that is really well done. Now, getting into the crown, it does have the Seiko. It is signed with the full Seiko text, which you don't get very often. It is, it looks like embossed versus debossed, like my SLA 017. So a little bit different, but you'll see that also on the newer SJE 093 reissue as well, in terms of having it, you know, with kind of engraved Seiko. But very nice. You guys can see, very unique and playful case back, still in very good condition. It's just a little bit of actually, let me wipe it off real quick. It's just going to be more so a little bit of fingerprints there, and less about really anything else. Check that out. Even with just a quick wipe, you can see minimal wear there on the back, and that's typically going to be the tail of the tape and how well the watch was looked after. You know, of course, this is going to be the high polish section, and it's going to be sitting on that section, so it's going to get scraped every now and again. Inside here, although you can't see it, it does have an automatic Seiko 8L35 movement, which has a 50-hour power reserve and beats at 4 hertz. So nice full 4 hertz sweep there at 800 vibrations per hour. Of course, you can't see it though because of the solid case back, but you know it's there. And getting into this dial, you have the beautiful raised indices, definitely very true to the period. Matte black dial, again, very unique that they released not only a black dial but a matte black dial on here. It's not comparable to any of the other variations out there. And it does have a beautiful framed date there at 3 o'clock, nicely color matched. So now when it comes to that white text, it's going to match with, you know, that silvery white text on the dial. And it just has another level of cohesion in terms of that layout. And it's just a little bit different, and just makes it feel a little bit more modern. It's just, again, it's just a little tiny touch that you don't necessarily notice. It's not in your face, but somehow you still get to really enjoy that. Seiko Lume bright, polished and bevel hands, all the good stuff here. Divers 200 meters, which means it's ISO compliant up to 20 bar, 19 millimeter lugs that are drilled, and it does come on this great strap. I will say the tan strap isn't quite as nice. It's also included and looks pretty unworn. This one definitely is more supple and soft, while the tan strap is actually, I would say, a bit more stiff and lighter feeling by comparison. This definitely has a little bit more of a heavy gauge feel to it, which I actually prefer out of the two options. And it does come with those two tropic style dive straps in either black or tan. But with that said, let's actually get these on the wrist and see how they wear. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this looks gorgeous. Come on, look at that. Look at the way it lays, the contours to it. This thing is really gorgeous, immaculate, and again, for me, kind of the ultimate Grand Seiko offering. This thing is gorgeous. It just has all the options done right here. And then of course on the other side, a familiar sight, but with a little bit of a twist as well, right? Ooh, that is gorgeous. And of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the lens, you're going to get some distortion, and you're going to think this watch looks bigger on my wrist than it actually does. But what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the shot here so you guys can get still a detailed look, but just at a bit of a truer aspect ratio about, you know, as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And I think it looks gorgeous, guys. Check that out. Yes, it is going to be on the slightly thicker side, but I mean, it's mostly the case back. And, you know, in typical Seiko fashion, it really hides that thickness really well, guys. Check that out. It just contours, wraps, really beautiful, nice downward turned lugs there that, again, they hug the wrist well. And in this iteration, it just is so clean. It's just so clean, so special. And yes, I love my 62 MAS reissue. I mean, it's kind of my grail, but this one is up there as well. And it's just very, very special, not just due to its rarity, but just due to the choice of the changes that they made to it. I think it's just really cool and it just goes against the grain of what you would think for luxury divers. And there's something that's really fun about that kind of counterculture. And then, of course, a closer look at here. My gosh. Yeah, I know most people don't really want to wear a 40 millimeter dressy watch, but you know what, with a screw down crown and 100 meters of water resistance, this thing is really ready for an everyday adventure. And look at that bracelet. As much as people kind of can complain about Grand Seiko and their bracelets, it's one of those things. Realistically, guys, this is a signature bracelet for them. There's really nothing wrong with it. No, it's not the same as an oyster bracelet, but it's not an oyster bracelet. I don't think people want Seiko to make Rolex bracelets. I think they want Seiko and Grand Seiko to kind of invent their own version of it. And you know what? This brand, especially within this line, it's a heritage line. Even Grand Seiko itself is really about being quite retro most of the time. And a lot of the more contemporary pieces, I think they should adventure out to do a little bit more. Of course, I have some nice neo-vintage action going on from the Grand Seiko. So, I don't pay too much attention to some of the newer offerings, but this one is one that I've wanted to get my hands on for quite some time. But with that said, let's actually get these off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, guys, so as you can see, no Lume on the other watch. But again, if this was a 2-watch collection, you have one that is more going to be the dedicated sports watch and the other that's going to be more on the dressy side, right? But one thing I always like to work in is a bit of a low light transition, which, it's great because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath the overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like and less than optimal lighting. And my goodness, guys, whoo, these guys have got some light play to them, some sheen. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of, you can see that multi-spectrum reflection coming off of a reflection board that I keep kind of off camera there to just spice things up a little bit. But man, look at this, that dial. Both dials are great, but man, that Grand Seiko dial is doing Grand Seiko things. Check out that texture, pale icy blue. Typical to Grand Seiko fashion, it's going to be very subtle, right? A lot of people might see this and see it as a white dial, a pale silvery dial, but it does have those icy blue tones, kind of like how they do with pink, right? It's more of a blush pink, and sometimes you can see it a little bit more within the press photos, but out in real life, it's going to look mostly like a white dial. You're going to get something similar here. In a lot of different angles, it's going to be very pale and silvery, but when you catch it right, you see the blue just come to life. And I think that is the right way to do it, just because it makes it just feel, again, a little bit elusive to your eye, right? You're gonna have to be looking for that tone, and when it hits, it really hits. So I dig that. And then you take a look at this diver, and man, I mean, you might think $6,000 is expensive for this, but compare that to, let's say, a Glossuit original diver, that's a skin diver that's going to have a very similar aesthetic, and it's going to be just as in-house. Maybe even not quite as in-house, because I'm not sure Glossuit original make their own hairsprings and grow their own jewels, and even make their own lubricants for the movements, and that's one area where Grand Seiko and Seiko really excel, right? Also, you're getting ever brilliant steel. This isn't going to be some basic steel. This is ever brilliant, guys. That means it's going to be brighter, whiter, and just glossier, almost to a white gold or to a platinum level, in comparison to your standard stainless steel. And it's going to be more corrosion resistant as well, which is great, right? So this ever brilliant steel is looking brilliant, and these two watches look brilliant together. Big shout out to Belmont Watches. I've probably been doing this a little too long, guys. Let's get the lights back on. Okay, these are truly two awesome options. Let me know what you guys think, though. I think these pair really great together. If I was going to do a 2-watch collection, I guess you could flip the script. You could get you could do a Grand Seiko diver with a dressy Seiko Presage or a King Seiko, and save money on either way. But honestly, these, again, what I think is cool, the Grand Seiko, you're getting a real steal for it, about $7,000, and the Seiko at $6,000 might not seem that crazy, but when you think about how rare they are, there's only 300 of them. There's a lot of happy owners that will never sell these. That value is probably only going to go up, which is wild. And yeah, I just dig these two. And again, I'm really happy I was able to get a hands-on, share that with you guys. And yeah, I'm happy and excited to hear what you guys think in terms of, what you would categorize in your little 2-watch collection proposition. So with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like. And if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.